All right, so get ready, because today we're diving deep, deep into some serious wisdom. We're talking about Oprah Winfrey's amazing commencement speech at Spelman College.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how she manages to pack decades of experience into such bite-sized pieces of advice, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. It's not just surface level stuff either. Like, she goes deep into the mindset and the choices that have helped shape her whole journey. And she starts by asking this really basic question, right? Who am I?
Uh-huh.
But at first you might be thinking like, okay, well, I know my name, my job title, where I fit in my family. But Oprah, she wants us to go way deeper than just those labels.
Yeah, exactly. It's like those external things don't really capture who we truly are, you know?
And it's funny because she actually talks about how early on in her career, she had trouble explaining what she did to people in other countries because it didn't really fit neatly into a box.
I can see that.
So it's more about figuring out your core values,
Hmm.
the things you're passionate about, the things that light you up from the inside out.
Definitely. And what's interesting is that she eventually finds her own answer in a deeply personal way by saying, I am God's child.
Yeah. It might sound kind of simple on the surface, but it speaks to this bigger idea of connecting to something larger than just ourselves, right? Like
Wow.
finding a sense of purpose and belonging in the universe.
I think that's something a lot of people are really searching for these days, that sense of meaning beyond just the material world.
For sure. In Oprah's speech, it really does offer like this roadmap to figuring out not just who you are, but also what you want to do with your life.
Totally. And that's where it gets really powerful because she moves beyond just being successful and talks about this concept of, fulfilling your potential.
Becoming the best version of yourself, yeah.
Exactly. And I love how she puts it. She says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's something like, I want to fulfill the promise that the creator dreamed when he dreamed the cells that made up me.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Isn't it? It's so poetic.
Yeah, it really is. And it kind of challenges us to think about our own potential.
Yeah.
Like what are our unique gifts and talents? And how can we use them to make a positive impact out there in the world?
That's a great question.
Because it's not just about being successful for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Oprah really emphasizes this idea that service and significance equals success. Like she's basically reframing this whole concept of what success really means.
Yeah, and it's an important shift, especially in a culture that often equates success with just wealth or status.
Mm-hmm.
So Oprah's suggesting that real success is about, using your platform and your talents and all of your resources to actually make a difference in the lives of others.
Exactly. And she uses some really good examples to illustrate this point. She talks about people like Mark Zuckerberg,
Hmm.
Jay-Z, even the Spelman graduates who were
Mm.
receiving their degrees that day.
Oh, yeah.
And what she highlights is how each of them is using their unique position to do good, to contribute something meaningful to the world.
I see what you mean. And what makes it even more powerful is how Oprah actually lived this out herself. She talks about how her own career changed completely when she shifted her focus to using television as a force for good.
Right. It wasn't about just chasing ratings or fame anymore.
It became about making a real difference. Yeah.
And it's like when you're truly passionate about something, when you're driven by a purpose that's bigger than yourself, that energy is contagious.
Yeah.
It shines through and people are drawn to it. It's not about trying so hard to be successful. It's more about just showing up authentically and making a genuine contribution.
I think that's a very empowering message for anyone listening, no matter what their background is.
Totally. So we can all make a difference, right? And that kind of leads into Oprah's advice
Yeah.
about doing the right thing.
Mm.
She puts it really simply, but it's powerful. She says, always do the right thing, be excellent.
Love it. It's
Yeah.
such a great mantra for life.
Yeah, I know, right? And she uses this hilarious story about Taco Bell to drive the point home. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah. The one about the employee who went above and beyond with the napkins and sauce, right? It's such a great example of how even those little acts of kindness and excellence can totally make an impact and be remembered.
Mm-hmm. It's like those small moments of unexpected delight that can really make someone's day. And it also just reinforces the idea that excellence is a habit,
A choice we make in every interaction.
for sure. But let's be real, doing the right thing isn't always easy, especially when you're faced with tough choices or pushback from other people.
That's true. And Oprah doesn't sugarcoat that at all. In fact, she shares a really personal story about a time when she had to make a very difficult call, a decision that actually went against what her team was advising and could have potentially cost her a huge ratings win.
Are you talking about that interview she refused to air with the Sunday school teacher who was, well, living this double life as a sex addict?
Exactly. Her team was all for it. They thought it would be a massive hit. But Oprah ultimately decided against it because she was really concerned about the impact it would have on the woman's son, who was still pretty young.
Wow.
Yeah, she even says, there are consequences for every choice you make, acknowledging that doing the right thing can sometimes come with a personal cost.
That's so true. And I think that's actually what makes her so relatable. Like, she's not this perfect guru who always knows exactly what to do.
Yeah.
She's human, and she's made mistakes and faced her own challenges, and she's learned from those experiences.
And that's what makes her wisdom so valuable, right? It's not just theoretical, it's grounded in real-life experience.
It reminds us that we all have that power to choose integrity and compassion, even when it's really difficult.
It's like choosing the harder right over the easier wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Even though it might not always feel good in the moment, there's this sense of peace that comes from knowing you did what you believe was right, even if it wasn't the popular or the easy choice.
That piece is priceless. Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, but hold on, deep divers, because Oprah has even more wisdom to share with us. And this next bit is about something that can seriously make or break our success. The people we choose to surround ourselves with. And trust me, this is where it gets really interesting.
It is, because success, the kind of success Oprah's talking about, the kind rooted in authenticity and service, can be really tough to navigate if you don't have the right people in your corner, you know?
You're telling me it's like some people just can't handle it when you start to grow and change.
She even says it straight out, like, people don't always like you, especially if they're not accustomed to your success.
Oof, I've definitely felt that one.
Me too. And Oprah's got this great analogy for it. She talks about offering gallon-sized offerings to pint-sized people.
Ooh, what do you think she means by that?
Well, I think she's talking about people's capacity for growth. Some people are cool with, like, small, gradual changes, but then when you start making big leaps and your life really starts to, like, overflow, it can be intimidating to those who are still at a different level.
Right. And it's not about judging them or anything. It's just recognizing that we're all on our own unique journeys. And sometimes you got to let go of relationships that aren't serving you anymore, even if it's hard.
Totally agree. Like, sometimes holding on to those relationships can actually hold us back from becoming who we're meant to be.
It's like trying to fly with weights tied to your ankles. You got to lighten the load to really soar, you know?
Love that analogy.
And when you do that, it creates space for new, more supportive relationships to come in, you know? People who are genuinely excited for your success and want to see you shine.
That's what it's all about.
And Oprah totally gets this. She talks about how important it is to have a strong support system, especially when you're going through challenges. And she also emphasizes the role of faith or connecting to something bigger than yourself in helping you get through tough times.
That's where that whole source energy idea comes back in, right? Like remembering to tap into our own sources of strength and inspiration, whatever those look like for us.
And I think it's important to remember that this doesn't have to be about religion specifically.
Yeah, it's more about connecting to something that gives you that sense of meaning and purpose.
Yeah. It could be spending time in nature.
Right?
Or creating art, meditating, even just being around the people you love. Whatever it is, it's about tapping into something that makes you feel connected to something larger than yourself.
It's about nourishing your soul and finding ways to stay grounded, especially when things feel chaotic or overwhelming.
Exactly. And one last thing Oprah mentions before we move on to part 2 is that you have to honor yourself first. Like you have to give to yourself before you can truly give to others.
Which is such a powerful reminder, because self-care isn't selfish. It's actually essential if you want to make a real difference in the world.
Absolutely. But we'll dive deeper into that idea in the next part of our deep dive. So stay tuned, deep divers, because there's a lot more wisdom to uncover. Welcome back, deep divers. So we're picking up right where we left off in our exploration of Oprah's incredible wisdom from that Spelman College commencement speech.
And, you know, last time we were talking about finding your tribe, those folks who can really support you on that path to success, right?
Yeah, and it's important to remember how she kind of redefined success. You know, it's not just about those personal wins. It's about service and making a real difference in the world.
And she's super real about the fact that it's not always easy. Like, success comes with its own unique challenges.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Right. Sometimes people, even people you're close to, react kind of negatively to your growth.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to deal with, you know, when you're out there trying to do good things and suddenly you get hit with that negativity.
She actually talks about how she's experienced that firsthand, how people haven't always liked her as she's become more and more successful.
It's like, wait, what? I'm doing all this good stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, Oprah doesn't shy away from those tough conversations at all. Remember that line she drops? When they say you're full of yourself, you can say, yes, I am full. My cup runneth over.
Oh, yeah. So good. It's like she's refusing to apologize for her success.
And I think that's such an important message, especially for women.
Definitely. Like, we're often told to downplay our achievements and not be too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's about owning your worth and not letting anyone, dim your light.
And this ties back into that idea of surrounding yourself with the right people, those who can handle what she calls gallon-sized offerings.
Right. Like imagine pouring a whole gallon of water into a tiny little
It's
glass.
going to overflow, make a huge mess.
Exactly. And that's kind of what happens when we try to share our energy and our big dreams with people who aren't quite ready to receive it.
Totally. And again, it's not about blaming them or saying they're bad people. It's just about recognizing that everyone is at a different point in their journey. And sometimes we have to let go of relationships that aren't serving us anymore, even if it's really hard to do.
It can be super painful.
It can. But holding on to those relationships, it can really keep us stuck.
Like we're trying to fly, but with weights tied to our ankles.
Yeah. Exactly. But when we let go, it creates this like open space for new relationships to come in.
People who are excited to celebrate our successes and who want to see us shine.
And those are the people who can make such a difference in our lives, you know? They cheer us on when we're winning, they support us when we're struggling, they challenge us to keep growing.
And Oprah, she totally gets it. She talks about how important it is to have that strong support system, especially when you're going through those really tough challenges.
And she also emphasizes that connection to something bigger than yourself, like faith or spirituality.
Which brings us back to that source energy idea again, right?
Yeah, like remembering to tap into our own sources of strength, whatever those may be for us individually.
And it's important to point out that this doesn't have to be about organized religion or anything.
Right. It's more about connecting to something that gives you that deep sense of purpose and meaning.
It could be nature, art, meditation.
Spending time with loved ones.
Yeah. Anything that really nourishes your soul and makes you feel connected to something greater than yourself.
It's about taking care of yourself, especially when the world feels really chaotic and overwhelming.
And before we move on, Oprah says this one thing that really stuck with me. She says, you have to honor yourself first. You have to give to yourself first. Otherwise, you have nothing to give away.
I love that. It's so true because self-care isn't selfish. It's essential if we actually want to make a difference out there in the world.
Exactly. But we'll dive deeper into that idea of self-care and giving back in the next part of our deep dive. So stay tuned, deep divers. We're just getting started. Okay, deep divers, we are back for the final part of our deep dive into Oprah's commencement speech at Spelman College. And I gotta say, going through all of this wisdom, it feels like we're getting a sneak peek into what makes an extraordinary life.
It's true. It's like she's giving us this blueprint for living a life that's full of purpose and meaning.
Yeah. And it's not just about achieving success for yourself, but about living with integrity, being of service to others.
And what's really cool is how she ties all these different aspects of life together so seamlessly. It's like you can't have one without the other.
Right. It's like all these different threads woven together to create something truly beautiful and like intricate.
A masterpiece.
Right.
Yeah.
And we started by talking about knowing yourself, like really understanding your values and passions and purpose.
And then we moved into the idea of service, how true success is about using your gifts to actually make a difference.
And it doesn't have to be some massive world-changing thing either. Remember that story Oprah told about the Taco Bell employee?
Oh, yeah. The one who went above and beyond with the napkins and sauce. I love that story.
Me too. Because it reminds us that excellence isn't about being perfect. It's about putting your heart into everything you do, even the small things.
And when you combine that with a genuine desire to serve others, well, that's when things get really interesting.
Totally. And I think that's a big part of Oprah's, I don't know, like her secret sauce, you could say. Like she didn't just stumble into this level of success.
Yeah.
It took dedication and hard work and talent.
Definitely.
But she also never lost sight of the fact that she was part of something so much bigger than just herself.
And that's where that source energy comes back in, right? That connection to
Yeah.
something greater.
Exactly. And, as we were prepping for this deep dive, it really struck me how relevant Oprah's message is today, maybe even more so than when she first gave that speech.
Totally agree. Especially with everything going on in the world, it's easy to get bogged down by the negativity and uncertainty.
Yeah, but her words give us this roadmap, this sense of hope.
It's a reminder that we all have the power to choose, to choose love over fear,
Connection over division.
service over self-interest. And it starts with each of us doing what we can.
Showing up authentically. with integrity and a willingness to make a positive impact, even in small ways.
Because it's not about waiting for this perfect opportunity to come along. It's about finding those little ways to serve every single day.
Whether it's through random acts of kindness, supporting our communities, or just being a source of positivity and love.
I think that's the real beauty of Oprah's message, It's both aspirational and totally achievable.
It is. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to this one thing she said. All things are possible when you tap into that power within yourself.
Powerful stuff, right?
It really is. So my challenge to all you deep divers out there is to embrace your own power and make those impossible things possible. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.